Hari Om. On behalf of Chinmaya Mission UK, I warmly welcome you all to the first of many fundraising events this week as part of CM UK's efforts to raise funds for the NHS Charities Together COVID-19 appeal in support of NHS staff and volunteers during these very challenging times. Events during this week include these series of 4 evening talks, a musical concert by Chinmaya Mission's talented artists, 108 yoga sun salutations, meditation, and a children's quiz. Details for all these events can be found on our website, chinmayauk.org. Today's talk, Shelter in Prayer, is given by Brahmacharini Shripriya Chaitanya, resident teacher of Chinmaya Mission UK. Brahmacharini Shripriya Ji grew up attending Chinmaya Mission's children's and youth classes in Kenya and the UK. In 2012, she participated in the Yuva Veer program and was subsequently posted to Chennai, India for a year of service, where she taught in Chinmaya schools. She returned to London to begin a master's program at the London School of Economics, but a realization of a deeper conviction within turned her life in a different direction, and she joined the 2-year residential Vedanta course at Sandipani Sadhanalaya in Mumbai in 2014. After completing this course, Shripriya Ji received Brahmachari Diksha in 2016 under the guidance of Puja Guruji, Swami Tejomayananda and Swami Bodhatmananda, and she committed her life to the vision of Puja Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda, to serve the world by spreading the knowledge of the scriptures. This Shripriya Ji does with a depth and clarity of knowledge, combined with humility, sincerity, and devotion that has won a place in all our hearts. The Shelter in Prayer talks will be daily up till Thursday, 14th of May, from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. and can be accessed via both Chinmaya Mission UK YouTube channel and Facebook page. At the end of each day's talks, there will be a Q&A session. So please post your questions on Facebook and YouTube, and Shripriya Ji will try and answer as many as possible that relate to the talk. If you would like to make a donation, then please do so using the link shown on the slide. This link is also shared on YouTube and Facebook for your convenience. As a reminder, 100% of funds will be donated to NHS Charities Together COVID appeal. Now I humbly request Shripriya Ji to commence these talks and take us into the depths of prayer. Hari Om.
Hari Om. We will begin with an invocation. Please join me. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahmavidvaram. We begin these series of talks by invoking the grace and blessings of Bhagwan and of our Pujya Gurudev. And with their blessings and grace, we will explore this beautiful topic of prayer for the next 4 evenings. There is a popular, well-known saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. So popular that there are songs about this phrase, and much more, I'm sure. And the idea is that what shows our character, what shows what kind of people we are, is how we respond in difficult situations. In difficult situations, we have to struggle. And if we're able to hold on to values and beliefs, even in those difficult situations in the midst of struggle, then that means that those values and beliefs are really a part of us. So to keep moving in challenges, to do this, to get going when things get tough, it requires strength, as do so many things in life. And the interesting question that we can ask is, where do we get our strength? Or how do we get strength to face challenges? So we know that to develop physical strength, we exercise, right? If we live a sedentary lifestyle, as many of us do, for those whose lifestyle is very physical, separate effort is not required. But the more that we practice, the more that we exercise, the stronger we become. In other words, when we use those muscles, then we develop strength, we develop endurance. But what about, apart from physical strength, what about our inner strength? Where does that come from? So there are lots of ways of thinking about it, but one is that strength comes from experience. When we've gone through something once, something challenging, and we've come out of the experience with everything intact, we've survived, then that experience tells us that next time this comes along, I will be able to face it. I have the strength to go into it and face whatever's coming. Another thing that also helps us to maintain this strength is when we have convictions and when we live up to those convictions. And this inspiration, the ability to live up to convictions, it comes from being clear about our purpose. If we know what we want, if we know what we are trying to achieve, then that clarity and the commitment to that purpose, to that goal, it helps us to get through challenges that arise along the way. And sometimes it's just through sheer stubbornness that we get through challenges. Sometimes when we don't give ourselves a choice, we go through that experience and we find at the end of it that we are stronger. When I first went to university, in school, exercise was never something that I enjoyed. And I think for a lot of people that's true. You know, when you're forced to do exercise in a particular way, it's not something that you enjoy. PE lessons hold a lot of bad memories for a lot of people, good memories for some. But when I joined university, I for some reason, was inspired to join a sports society. I won't tell you which one. But here was this sort of short, relatively chubby Asian girl in amongst this new team of people who had been exercising for the whole of their kind of school experience. And we would obviously have regular training, including circuits. For those of you who have done circuits, you know that they're very challenging. Regular kind of long runs that we would go on. And just from the fact of being part of a team that was, or a group of people that was going through the same experience, I knew that if I refused to keep going, no matter how hard I was finding it, I wouldn't feel that I had done the right thing. I would feel that I would let myself down. I would feel that I would have let others down. And often this can be a really inspiring thing too, that I'm part of something. And when I put forth effort, I'm contributing to something greater than myself. So this also gives us strength to get through experiences when we have a purpose. But at the same time, as much as we can develop strength individually, we are still, at the end of the day, individuals. And that means that we are limited. We are limited in our ability, we are limited in our power, we are limited in our knowledge, we are limited in the way that we exist. So if I exist as this body, if I exist as this person, it means that I can only ever be here now. I can only ever be in one place at one time. And as well as this limitation, what we find is that when challenges come, sometimes just being strong or being tough is not enough. We need to think about the way that we're facing challenges. It's not enough to just kind of be bullheaded about something and say, I'm just going to get through it by sheer force of will. If you're walking and you come to a brick wall and you need to continue along that path, and you say, no, I'm just going to keep going, and you just start pushing against that wall, you can push as long as you like, but you're never going to get past that obstacle. If you think a little bit, then you'll realize, okay, I can't push it down, but I can scale this wall. I can climb over and I can get to the other side. So thinking is required. And if our own strength is lacking, if we cannot scale that wall by ourselves, then we ask for help. And one thing that is so important to realize is that there is nothing wrong in asking for help, because sometimes this sort of stigma is there in our own minds about asking for help, about saying that I need support. But this is equally important, the ability to reach out and ask for what we need. And when we need rest, when we're tired, then we need to learn how to take rest. Pujya Guruji says beautifully that nobody will give you rest. You need to learn how to take it. And when we are unable to cope by ourselves, when we are aware of potential kind of negative outcomes of what we're experiencing, then we take shelter. If we're out and it starts raining, it's all very well saying that, no, I will keep going and I will reach my destination. No one ever melted from a bit of rain. That's fine. No one ever melted from a bit of rain. But if you stay out in the pouring rain for too long, you can catch pneumonia. You can get sick. So we need to take shelter. And as well as physically, we need that emotional support. We need somewhere that we can lean on, not only physically, but internally. That support is required. And the question is, where can we take support? Where can we appeal to for help? And the kind of obvious thing is that if somebody is to help us, they need to have the ability to help us. In other words, they should have what I am seeking, and they should have enough of it that they can share it with me, that they can offer it to me. So mentally, if I'm looking for support, I should look to someone who has the ability to share whatever mental wealth that they have, somebody who can share compassion, someone who can share kindness. If I'm unclear about something, then I can ask someone who understands what I don't understand. I won't ask someone who is equally as ignorant as I am. In other words, when we want help, we appeal to someone who has the ability to help us. And when we find ourselves in difficult situations, people can help us. Other people in our lives have the ability to help, but they also will suffer or will have limitations in the same way that I do. They may not have the same limitation, but they will have some limitation. So even if circumstances mean that they're better equipped and they can offer support, sometimes they also need help themselves, right? There's this very famous story of a man who had gone to a king to ask for some help. And when he had gone, he found that the king was praying. And he heard the king praying, and the king was saying, "Oh God, please help me to rule my kingdom. Please help me to defeat my enemies. Please help me to maintain peace. Please help me to maintain my treasury, etc." And the man heard this, and he started walking away. So the king finished his prayer, and his advisor said someone had come to meet you, but that man has now left. And this king was very proud that he had committed to helping anyone who approached him. So he said, no, quickly call him back. I will give him whatever he came here for. So they quickly rushed to find that man. He hadn't yet left the palace compound. And they called him back and they brought him to the king. And the king said, "You had come to ask for something, so ask for it." And that man said, "Why should I ask from a beggar? I will go to the source." So other people can help us, but ultimately they are also limited. So if we want help, really we have to go to the source of all wealth, of all strength, of all knowledge, of all love, of all compassion. And that is God. God is the source of everything that we are seeking. And we can approach people in the world for help, but God is the only one who can truly give us everything that we need. God is the only one who is not limited, who will have constraints in offering support. This is not the case. So when we need support, the best place to go to is to God. At this point, somebody may have questions. Sometimes what people say is that prayer is just a crutch. Religion is a coping mechanism, so there's no real truth in it. It's just a kind of method that we have devised for ourselves to trick ourselves into developing strength, developing the ability to face things. In other words, that support whom we are reaching out to is not real, and the method by which we are reaching out is also equally invalid. There is no real truth to it. This is what some people say. If you're reaching out to God, why not reach out to anything else? So what we have to understand is that God is more real than we are. It's not that God is something false that we have created to cope with our difficulties. Very famously, when before Swami Vivekananda became Swami Vivekananda, he went to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and he said, "Can you see God?" And Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, "I see him more clearly than I see you." So that God whom we are trying to understand, that God we have to understand in the correct way. God is not a figment of our imagination. God, when we say God, God means that truth that is supporting this entire universe, this entire creation. That consciousness, that existence, which is supporting this entire world, which is supporting our own existence, our own expression. And therefore, there is nothing that is more real than God. In fact, it is us thinking that I am real as an individual that is false. Everything changes in this world. But that support, that truth, that existence, that is what does not change. And when we understand God in the right way, then we recognize that God alone, that divinity, that intelligence, whatever we call it, God alone can truly be a support. God alone can truly be our shelter. And in fact, what we discover in Vedanta is that our whole purpose of life is to know God, and to know God as not different from me. We say it's to understand ourselves, but what is that self that we are trying to understand? That self is God. Our current identity is assumed. Our current identity is making us suffer, and therefore we need support. And this is because our current identity is as individuals. And individuals means we will be limited. This very notion causes my separation from the world. It causes us to embark on all sorts of pursuits, to seek meaning, to make sense. If this is too much, then we can understand it in this way, that whenever we are isolated, whenever we feel alone, when we feel disconnected, when we feel powerless, we feel helpless, we suffer. And all of these things are symptoms of being very much fixed in this idea that I am an individual who is separate, who is not connected to the world around me. things may be challenging, right? Things may be difficult. But if I know that I have the ability to get through it, it can be enjoyable, or at the very least, it can be informative. It can be something that I learn from. If I face something and I feel helpless and I feel powerless to overcome that challenge, then I will suffer. If, on the other hand, I believe that, yes, I can get through this, either because I've done it before or because I have some conviction, then I will not suffer through that experience necessarily. I will be able to learn from it. I may even be able to enjoy it. So when we face challenges, when we feel this way, when we feel isolated, when we feel disconnected, when we feel helpless and powerless, what can be our solution? What can help us? Just as when we are suffering, it feels better to talk to someone, right? Even if that person can't help me solve what I'm going through, it feels better just for having expressed my experience, just for knowing that someone else knows this is what I'm going through. And this is what prayer does for us. When we feel isolated, when we feel powerless, when we feel helpless, when things are outside of our control, prayer is a means of establishing a connection. It's like developing a relationship, right? When you meet someone and you want to develop a relationship with that person, what do? So the first thing is you have to set aside time, right? You have to give time and say that I'm available to you. And then what do you do with that time? So you connect. You talk to that person, you share whatever you're thinking, you're feeling, your experiences. But you also listen and you learn about them. You want to get to know what they like, what they don't like, how they think, what their experiences have been. In any relationship, right? This is what is important, is dedicating that time to developing and strengthening that connection. And when we say strengthen connection, we are strengthening our identification. So we find ourselves coming together with that person whom we are connecting with. We find things in common, then we easily connect with other people, right? If you don't have the same interests, then often we find that we don't have much to talk about. So there is no need to spend so much time together. Sometimes what happens is after we've developed the connection, then we start to like what that other person likes. Then we start to develop the same preferences that they have. But this is the purpose that prayer achieves for us, is that when we are suffering as a result of all those things that are associated with our individuality, with the fact that we are living in this world as distinct units, it helps us to develop this connection. And who are we developing the connection with? So we're not establishing this connection with any other individual, right? In prayer, we are becoming connected to the infinite, to God. So then we have a question that, okay, if I'm trying to connect to this infinite presence in this world, how do I form that connection, right? When I say I'm dedicating time in establishing a relationship, it's because I have a person to dedicate time to. I have a person to meet and to talk to and to learn about. So when it comes to establishing a connection with the infinite, with God, how do we do this? So the beauty is, because God is present everywhere, we can take any part of this infinity, and there we can connect to God. We can invoke God in any part of this totality because God is present in every part of this totality. It's like when you want somebody's attention, right? And that person can't hear you for whatever reason. Then what do? You reach out and you touch some part of them. You touch their shoulder or you touch their hand. You don't have to physically touch every part of their body with every part of your body. Just if you touch even lightly, if you touch that person's hand, you're not only getting the hand's attention, you're getting the attention of the whole person. So in the same way, when we want to establish a connection with God, we don't have to feel like, how do I get the attention of the infinite? I take one part of creation, and there I can invoke this totality because God is present there also. And this is why we can take a Shiva Linga or a Shaligrama or any idol. We're not just worshipping the idol. We're not becoming connected to a piece of stone or a piece of metal. We are becoming connected to the totality that is represented in that one aspect of creation. We are invoking God into this one symbol or this one representation. So we can invoke totality in one aspect. We can invoke totality as one aspect of creation. And this is the principle that because God is present everywhere, therefore, totality can be invoked in a particular form. And often people have this question that if God is present everywhere, why can't I just take any form? Why does it have to be a specific form? Why does it have to be a Shivalinga or a Shaligrama? Why can't I take a chair or a table? So, according to the principle, you can. But specific forms are pointed out to us because we are trying to remember specific things about the totality when we invoke in that particular form. So when we invoke in a particular form, so for example, you take Ganesha, okay, as one of our deities, then what are we understanding? So we're understanding that God is all compassionate by one aspect of that form. We understand that God listens to everyone through one aspect of that form. We understand that various values are connected to each aspect, and therefore we don't just take anything randomly. When we take Lord Shiva, we assign various meanings, or various meanings are assigned, not by us, to each aspect of his form, so that when we look at that form, when we remember that form, we remember certain qualities, we remember certain things about God. So we could take a chair, we could take a table, but it wouldn't have the same effect as invoking God in these forms of these deities with that understanding. We are trying to remember that God is all compassionate, all loving, all knowing, all powerful. And those forms are specifically given to help us remember those things. And this is how we can enjoy the presence of God and take comfort, is when it's connected to a particular form. We can invoke the totality in that. When I was younger, I always used to wonder, we used to listen to Puja Guruji, and as he does now at the beginning of a talk, he would always say, I invoke, or even at the end also, I invoke the grace and blessings of Bhagwan and me and Puja Gurudev. And I would always wonder that, what is he doing when he says that? Is he doing something special? Is he doing something that I can't do? How is he invoking? How is he invoking that grace and blessings? And the beauty is that invocation is something that everyone can do, because we are all connected to God always at all times. Of course, there is a difference between Puja Guruji invoking, because that mind with which he is invoking is very different to the mind with which we invoke. But the fact is that we are all capable of doing it, because we are all connected to God at all times. It's like, when you have say a judge in a court, right? That judge gives out a sentence. Every judge can give out that sentence because they are a representative of the judiciary. So there may be a difference in them individually, but because they are all representatives of that one body, all are representing that particular totality, they have the same ability. We are all part of this totality, and we all have the ability to invoke. And invoking means calling upon God, but remembering that he is present everywhere, and that those grace and blessings are always flowing to us from God. So what is prayer? Prayer is establishing a connection with God, with divinity. It is reaching out to God. It is invoking God. And sometimes, we ask this question, that why should we pray? Often, as kids, we have this question, that why pray? Especially when elders are insisting on it, that you must go to the temple, or you must sit for this puja, or you must do this, do that. We have this question, why? Why should I pray? So different people have different reasons of reaching out to God. Right? We can look at it this way, that people reach out to God because they want something in the world, or they reach out to God for the sake of God. So, an example for this. Young children, why do they reach out to their parents? So we can think of 4 reasons. We'll see these 4 reasons. As I start naming them, many of you will immediately understand. Sometimes that child has gotten hurt, They're being troubled by someone. And therefore they run to the parents. Like this beautiful story that we are given of Bhagwan Shri Krishna, where Balaramji keeps telling him, "You're so dark and mother is so fair, you look like a girl," etc. He keeps troubling him. So Bhagwan immediately runs to Mother Yashoda. So there's the other way around. Bhagwan is approaching mother. But often with children, when they're going through something difficult, they don't know how to solve it. They want some comfort. Then they'll go to their parents. Sometimes it's not because they're troubled by something, it's because they want something. So this is with children a little bit older, even with young children. They want something. They know that parents are the one who can get it for them. Whatever it is that they want. So then they'll go to their parents and they say, "Please, can you get me this?" Sometimes when children get a bit older, they start becoming curious about their parents. So they want to know about each parent. So how did you grow up? Where did you go to school? What was your life like? Then sometimes about parents together. So they want, how did you meet? Where did you get married, etc., etc. So we become curious about our parents. And then we reach out to them to find out all these different things. Sometimes just because we want to express our love. Sometimes we just want to express our gratitude. Sometimes just because we want to, for their own sake, we reach out to our parents. In the same way, different devotees pray to God, approach God for different reasons. This, of course, is given in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavan says there are 4 different types of devotees. So sometimes we are suffering in this world and we cannot relieve the problem ourselves. We cannot solve it. And so we reach out. Like Draupadi. When Draupadi was being disrobed in this assembly and nobody was standing up to help her, she called out to Sri Krishna. And he immediately came to help her. Sometimes we want something from this world that we ourselves cannot attain. And so we reach out to God. So in the Bhagavatam, this very well-known story of Dhruva. Dhruva wanted to sit on his father's lap. And he was told no by his father's other wife, not Dhruva's own mother, that you can only sit on his lap when you are born to me. He's so upset. So he goes crying to his mother. And his mother tells him, if you want this, go to Bhagavan Narayana. He can help you. And beautifully there it's pointed out that Dhruva prays with this intention. He wants something. But when he asks Bhagavan and he gets it, then he realizes that actually I cannot ask for such a thing from Bhagavan. As many of us do, that why did I ask for that? I should have just asked for love, for bhakti, for devotion. So this is another type of devotee. Sometimes we're curious, we want to know. So you could say that, for example, at some certain points in the Gita, when Arjuna says, Bhagavan, I want to know you. Where can I recognize you? Then you could say that he is curious. And of course, you have those who approach God just for God's own sake. Just out of love, like the narrator of the Bhagavatam, like Shukadevji, like Bhagavan Shankaracharya, who wrote so many stotrams, so many hymns in praise of the Lord, not because he wanted anything, not because he didn't know who God was, but out of pure love and devotion. So this is one way of looking at it, that these are different reasons that people pray. For some people, prayer comes first. So for some people, before they begin anything, before they begin anything, prayer will be the first thing that they do. So they will first, before starting their day, before starting a new business venture, before starting any study, they will first invoke the Lord, they will first pray, and then they will proceed and do whatever they have to. For some people, prayer comes last. For some people, it's that there's no other option. I've exhausted all my means. I've done everything that I possibly can. And now my only option, it seems, is to appeal to God for help. So sometimes we feel that because we're backed into a corner, no other option is available, therefore we pray. But there is a very interesting thought here, which is that actually there is never any compulsion to pray. Even when we feel that there is no other option available to us, it's not necessary that someone will say, well, I can't do anything else, so the only thing that I can do is pray. Because very often, when there's nothing left to do, people will do nothing. It's not that there is something that is forcing us to pray even when all hope is lost. That is a choice that we make. And that prayer is all the more powerful because of the fact that it's a choice that we make. For example, say somebody threatens you, okay? With Bhagwan's blessings, it will not happen. But say it happens. Say in our life, we experience these things. Somebody threatens you and says, give me all your money, all your wealth. Okay, you get robbed. So because of that threat, you don't feel that you have a choice because otherwise they'll harm you. So you say, okay, I will rather give away everything what they're asking for than allow them to harm me. But even then, people will often not. People will often choose to suffer, to be hurt, than to allow somebody to take away what they have. And there is a huge difference between allowing someone to take something away and giving it in charity. Which is the one that will purify us? Which is the one that will help us to grow? When we consciously, with generosity, with humility, when we give, then we benefit. So because just by making this choice to pray, by that choice alone, we become strong. By that choice alone, we benefit. When we are very much focused on ourselves, when we are focused on our own experiences, our own ability or lack of ability in any area, when we lead or when we think in this way, we will lead a very limited kind of life because our thinking is limited. When we are focused only on ourselves, our experiences will also be limited we will not attain that kind of meaningful experience that we are all looking for in this world. There will be a lack of depth in our experiences when we're only focused on ourselves. What prayer gives us the ability to do is look beyond ourselves. Because in prayer, we are establishing a connection. And to establish this relationship, this connection, we have to focus on, we have to think of the one with whom we are developing that relationship. So here, if we are praying, if we are giving time, then we have to give time to God. We have to think of God. And just the mere fact that we are spending time in prayer, thinking of God, means that we have reduced the amount of time that we are thinking of ourselves. So this in itself is a benefit. The fact that you have given this time means there's less time focused on me. And as we know, that our thought becomes reality. Our thought also forms our identity. This is a very famous phrase that we all repeat. As you think, so you become. What does that mean? That when I'm constantly thinking of God, then the quality of my mind improves. There is less agitation, we become less selfish, we improve our clarity in the mind when we have the correct understanding of God and when we are able to relate to God in the right way. Then it has this beautiful effect on our mind. And we can see this in devotees that we meet. We can see this in their beautiful personalities. They are the evidence. So when we spend time with God, it automatically has this calming effect on our mind. It has this uplifting effect on our mind because we are thinking of the source of all positive qualities, the source of love, the source of compassion, the source of knowledge. Naturally, all those things will start to develop in our own minds. And when we are freed from the limitations of our own mind, of our own personality, that is when we can have access to the infinite. The most beautiful example of this, the ideal kind of devotee, is Hanuman. Hanumanji, who, when this group of Vanaras are trying to cross the ocean, everybody's saying, I can go this much, I can go a little bit further, I can go, but I don't know if I can come back. He is quiet. He is not saying anything. Then he is told, the purpose of your life is to serve Lord Rama. And immediately he gets up. I will do it. Just by the remembrance of God, there is no limitation. So this is what prayer can do for us. And if its result is so great, even in this sort of one aspect that we've analyzed, then, sometimes we have this question that I don't feel that I can pray. I try, but I find it difficult to connect to God. So, is something specific required to allow me to pray? Or can anybody do it? In other words, who can pray? And as we saw, we are all part of this totality. So we can all invoke that totality. But really, the relevant thing to see is who will benefit the most from prayer. What kind of person will benefit from prayer? And here, there are certain things which we can develop, which will allow us to benefit more from prayer than if we didn't have those particular qualities. So, what those qualities are, as well as how we can pray, we will explore tomorrow. So, today we looked at what is prayer, why pray, and now we will see who is it that can benefit from prayer, and how can we start practicing this? How can we start praying? Or how can we continue praying such that it becomes a true shelter for us, such that it empowers us to also support those around us, such that it allows us to be able to support those immediately surrounding us, but also the wider world. So this we will see tomorrow and in the coming days. So we'll pause here. We will close with the Shanti Mantra, the peace invocation, after which there is just one quick announcement. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Hopefully you can all see this image that is now being projected. I just wanted to say a little bit about this series of talks and further events that are planned. All of these events that you are seeing, the details of which are displayed, are being run in order to fundraise to support NHS Charities Together. So please do join in, and please do contribute as much as you can, as much as you feel is appropriate, so that we can extend our support in this way also to those who are giving their time, giving their skills, giving their expertise to help everyone who is suffering through this current situation. Those of us who are privileged enough to be able to extend our support, this is a beautiful way to do so. And in fact, you know, sometimes we feel that when we give, something is being taken away from us. We have made a loss somehow. In fact, by giving, we are gaining. By giving, we are actually invoking that prosperity. We are bringing prosperity into our lives when we are able to share what we have with others. So please do so in whichever way you feel appropriate. And I will we'll resume again tomorrow for this second talk. Hari Om.